What is happening, y'all? How you making out? Got a great guest today and a good friend of mine, Chris Enriquez, who is the drummer of Spotlights and also plays in Primitive Weapons. We get into all sorts of good stuff, not the least of which was playing in a punk rock karaoke band. Got some equipment meltdown stories, a ridiculous story about a bathroom break in front of a big crowd, plus touring with Spotlights, and in particular opening up with the Melvins and Deftones. And some other cool stories about his other band Primitive Weapons and former band Han. And some great Dale Crover stories and advice, strangely enough. And of course, Dave Grohl, who always seems to surface in these interviews when talking about drums. Plus hardcore Long Island shows and all sorts of good stuff. Shout out as always to my awesome sponsor, NewOrleansRecordPress.com. The first locally owned and operated full-scale vinyl production house in the city. Go on over to NewOrleansRecordPress.com to check out vinyl coloring options, mastering options, you know, you name it. And you can get real-time quotes from the quote generator, so it's awesome like that. So put out some vinyl already. You know that's what people want to hear. So here we go. Chris Enriquez, y'all. Spotlights, Primitive Weapons. Crash, bang, boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
All right, fucking Chris Enriquez, what's happening, dude?
Nothing much, Jody. It's good to see you.
Yeah, man, it's a nice-ass day. We got the sun coming in. We got some animals hanging out. We're in Brooklyn. It's like, it's in the winter, but it's like 55 degrees and sunny outside.
Right. I'm sweating right now. And you have a lovely house.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm sitting here looking at you, and I'm always trying, if we're doing a version of like the racial draft, I'm going to go with you, your lineage. I'm going to say Filipino, Puerto Rican.
Filipino.
I got that right? Filipino,
Absolutely.
Mexican?
Just Filipino.
Oh, really?
Straightforward, yeah.
No Latin.
No, but it's Filipinos are basically half Chinese and half Spanish.
Right.
So, you know, it's basically a 50-50 mix. And I do get the dirty Mexican vibe a lot, especially because I have a stash and you know, it happens.
Yeah.
That's not very PC. I'm allowed to say that because I'm Spanish.
Of course. Whatever works, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandmother came directly from Mexico to New Orleans. So I actually have some strange, like, she said she was very adamant about that she was Spanish, i.e. European, i.e. white, and not a dirty Mexican, as it was I think how she kind of thought about it. You know,
so you have a little Spanish in your blood.
110%.
Wow, that's where your drumming talent comes from, I guess.
Maybe so, man. Yeah. And I have cousins I got family in Mexico, but it's hilarious, dude. If you want an indication of how white my Mexican lineage is, their last name, I kid you not, is literally Blanco. White.
There you go.
That's how fucking white they are.
That's awesome. That's great. That's
great. It's pretty fitting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. Yeah.
So, man, what's been going on? I feel like you've been doing a lot of touring lately.
Yeah. I just Spotlights has been doing a lot of touring.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of bouncing back and forth. They've been sort of splitting up the time between a drum machine and a live drummer, which would be me. But so they did 4 months with the Melvins. I bounced back and forth on that. They did about 73 shows. I did maybe 13.
Wow.
So it wasn't quite as much as I would have liked, but now I'm full time in the band and just did a bunch of tours with them and
more coming up.
And a whole bunch more coming up. So it's nice. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, how was it playing with the Melvins, man?
It was awesome. It was obviously like at first kind of like nerve-wracking because it's the Melvins.
Yeah.
And also it's Dale Crover.
Yeah.
Literally after one show, it was comfortable because they actually are not very they're not like pretentious. They're actually like more egoless and more normal than a lot of like local bands that you'll end up hanging out with, like completely awesome people. So after one show I start to feel really comfortable immediately. Yeah.
That's amazing, man, when you think about the Melvins, and especially like you said, them with their humility. If you think about how long they've been doing it, man.
Yeah.
Jesus
I think
Christ.
that's almost 40 years.
Holy shit.
Well, yeah, it would be, because they started in like the early 80s, so it's close to 40. It's like probably 35 plus.
Whoa.
I'm assuming.
Jesus.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's insane.
Right?
Yeah.
If you were playing in the early 80s and you're still playing now, that's...
Right.
Yeah. I'm 37, so yeah.
Yeah. They've been in as long as you've been alive.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's amazing, man. And such a strange at times and powerful and all just eclectic and bizarre records. Just the history of their recordings, they're all over the map, but it's always like expect the unexpected with them, you know?
Yeah, it's very like it's still the Melvins,
right?
You know,
right.
Even though they've sort of they have their own strange aesthetic that
I
think is very hard to define.
Yeah,
and people like obviously like everyone from Nirvana or Soundgarden, but also two bands now that are like sludge bands will cite like I Hate God doesn't sound like Nirvana, but they all took something from that,
right?
So it's kind of awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it was cool. Dale Crover, watching him play every night was incredible, and he let me play his kit.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's
like a
awesome.
few times. So I asked him, and he actually was like, he was so cool that he kind of looked at me like it was weird that I even asked. Like, yeah, of course, it's right there. What, like
not play
no one's playing it. Go ahead. It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
That is fucking badass. When was the first time you heard the Melvins? Do you remember?
Yeah. It was definitely through Nirvana. I'm not gonna,
Okay.
Yeah. I got into Nirvana when I shouldn't say when everyone else did, but you and I are the same sort of generation. But probably like 92. So if I heard about Nirvana in 91 through Nevermind, it was like through seeing them do interviews or wearing Melvins shirts. It was Houdini.
Yeah.
First record.
Yeah.
Didn't really actually understand it at first, to be honest with you.
Oh, 100%.
It took me a bit, and then once it kind of soaked in and I watched videos, as a drummer especially, it made a lot more sense, and I was converted for life.
Right.
Yeah.
The first time I heard him, strangely enough, was Ozma.
Oh, dude, that is a fucking record.
Yeah, and that's so... I've talked so many times about how strange it is and that it's so... almost disjointed, some of those songs, and the timing, quote unquote, is so specific to Buzz and Dale's like relation, just their chemistry.
Oh yeah,
it's
100%.
like it's not like if you were to like try to line it up to a metronome or something like that. It's their own very specific, almost idiosyncratic pocket that they play with.
Yes,
and you can't duplicate that. It's just fucking crazy. So I actually talked to Cody from Big Business, who also played, with the Melvins, doing double drums, and that was one of the questions that I asked him. I was like, "How was it getting the timing down for some of those stranger songs?" And he was like, "Dude, I had to kind of just look at him."
Yeah. I mean, you can see that in the videos. It's such an appropriate thing to talk about on this kind of podcast, because as a drummer, I've always wanted the same thing, and it is very much like you said. Like if it was a metronome, it wouldn't line up. It has a lot to do with some sort of strange language that I think they made up for themselves.
Absolutely.
So that's an interesting question to ask Cody as an outsider. You know what I mean? Like as somebody that was outside of the two of them that had to figure that out, and I would imagine there's a lot of visual cues.
100%.
Yeah. I give that guy so much credit for figuring out
how
to do that.
It's still, when I listen to some of those earlier records, I'm like, man, once you said, like, or as you said, that they definitely developed their own language in that. And to this day, it's there, and they've evolved it, and they've gone in different places with it. But that sort of core language that they initially developed is still so much part of what they do.
There's a lot of stops and goes where they're just in sync with each other. Yeah, and you're like, what? Okay. Yeah. It's like random.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's different at different times. I mean, that's just part of it, And it's especially interesting, I think, in today's time where so many bands are playing to click tracks live and backing tracks and different stuff like that. So then you have this. It's like a throwback in many ways to classic rock or jazz or 60s, 70s stuff, whatever. When people were just playing shit and it would change.
Absolutely. Like I used to work in a guitar center. And,
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. I was the guy that would stamp receipts for people.
Really?
Oh, it was horrible. But But I would watch, like, when you're working at Guitar Center, the Led Zeppelin Song That Remains the Same is usually on for your entire shift, like 5 times. But like that kind of vibe in the 70s, or like Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii.
Yeah.
That's a thing that I think, like what you're saying, is kind of like what Melvins do and kind of missing. It's coming back a little bit, but like the idea of like jamming on stage without having it be like a Grateful Dead or a Fish concert. It's like, and we try to do that a little bit now with Spotlights, because I play to a click, but we turn it off sometimes. And it started, like, we were influenced, I think, from that Melvins tour, sort of took a little bit from that into our current set, where like we'll just sort of go off into like just a weird jam part of the set where it's not the same every night.
It's great.
And I don't know that we would have done that if we didn't watch them.
Yeah.
I think they saw them like 73 times. So
right. Holy shit.
Yeah. Rubs off.
That's absolutely, cool. Man. Yeah. Well, with the Spotlights, man, you ended up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the first gigs or series of gigs that you did, was that opening for the Deftones?
Yeah.
You lucky motherfucker, man. Get out of here. Get out of my house.
My first show ever with Spotlights was opening up for the Deftones.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I never played like a club show with them before that. It's weird. It's not normal.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How was it opening up for the Deftones?
So similarly, actually even more nerve-wracking.
Abe is a bad motherfucker.
He's amazing.
He's badass.
It was one of those things where like I was sort of I don't get that starstruck usually nowadays, but like something about that I was a little starstruck about, because it was just I was a little starstruck around Melvins, but like Deftones is a band that I feel like I saw on MTV and on like Conan O'Brien, and like I just that was a little too strange, like because they don't play clubs. So it was like when I met them and saw them and knew that was happening, I knew that it was going to be a starstruck moment.
Right.
So it took a little bit for me to get over that, and I was actually on the tour for a few days before I started playing, because there was another drummer in Spotlights at the time. So we're splitting duties, and I'm not usually nervous, but when I was playing, I actually had Chino watching me on my left side and Abe watching on the right side. So it was like whatever I imagined in my head actually was happening, and they could tell that I was nervous.
Right.
Because I was sort of even socially awkward as I was trying to interact with people during the tour.
Right.
Sort of stumbling on my words and stuff.
Right.
So the best part of that story is that I, as soon as I was done playing, Abe helped me carry my drums off stage and grabbed my bass drum and actually looked at me and sort of gave me the approval, like, you all right, man? You still nervous? Got that out of the way. I think you were great, man. Don't worry about it. It's cool. It's gonna be fun. So that was kind of what it was like. It was in New Jersey at Asbury Park.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It was surreal.
Totally surreal.
Yeah. But I mean, it was funny because long story about that is I actually I played in other bands, and Mario asked me if I could fill in on drums for Spotlights, but wouldn't tell me who the tour was with, and I told him I was too busy.
Oh. And then he said, the
Deftones. Who it was with.
No problem. I'll go ahead and clear that calendar, brother.
I still feel bad to this day about it, but in the same breath, like, I was like, I'm kind of busy. I don't know if I could do this. And then he's like, oh, well, maybe I should tell you who the tour is with, but it's a secret. And then, like, within less than 5 seconds, I was like, oh yeah, I could figure that out.
I bet. Did you get any other words of wisdom from either Dale or Abe on any of those shows?
I would be lying if I didn't say I was still a little starstruck and nervous around them. So I'm going to take back what I said before. But I spoke with them and hung out with them and stuff, but never we didn't really nerd out on drums, to be honest, too much.
Interesting.
I talked to Dale a little bit more about drums, and he enjoyed, telling me little things about equipment. He actually told me my cymbals were pretty loud, which is really he's playing a much smaller kit now, than he was before,
right.
which is ironic because I play huge cymbals and huge drums because kind of because of him.
Right.
And my drum set was way bigger than his.
Oh,
like,
weird.
Like cymbal wise, and
yeah,
he had more shit on his kit, but like just the size of my toms and the size of cymbals, he had sort of a smaller kit that he's playing these days.
Interesting.
So it was funny. He told me about these new mufflers that they make to put on. I don't know what they are, but like you can put them on your cymbals to make them a little more quiet now.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's so strange. I just feel like you have. I don't know. I only play rides right now because I got tired of breaking crashes, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, the cymbals are going to be loud. Like, that would be so weird if like a guy that I really looked up to was like, yeah, man, those cymbals are a little too loud, bro.
It was a big topic of conversation on the tour, which is funny.
That is the strangest thing.
Mario is a drummer and sings in Spotlights, put duct tape on the cymbals after a couple days because they're all ride cymbals, like yours. And I think Dale overheard that and was like, oh, you could go to Guitar Center and actually like buy these things that like muffle the cymbals, which is funny. I didn't know that, but that was that was the extent of any, which is not the advice that I thought I was gonna get.
Not at all.
Like maybe you should, quieten it up a little bit, but no, it was more just watching them, and being in awe of like what is happening here. Like this fucking guy's killing it right now. How does he play like that?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, man, we were sitting here talking about drums. When exactly did you even start playing drums, and how did that come about in the first place?
I basically it's funny. I knew that I wanted to play play an instrument because I got into metal and I guess I got into metal and classic rock before punk and all that stuff. But anyway, the minute that I got into like metal and classic rock and all that stuff from like MTV, just like Headbangers Ball, and also in the '80s because you would see more glam metal and stuff,
of course,
on TV. It was normal. I knew I wanted to play some sort of instrument and be in a band, but I didn't know. I tried with bass. Then somebody told me that was boring because it was only 4 strings. And
well, also like in the '80s, I've had this discussion before so many times. Like most of those '80s records, it's like. When I was growing up, I didn't know what the bass did because you could barely hear them on the fucking records.
Right.
It was just guitars and drums.
Yeah,
and vocals.
You knew Nikki Sixx or or Sid Vicious were like cool.
Yeah.
They looked cool. But
right. What did they do?
Yeah, they weren't shredding.
Right. Meanwhile, Nikki Sixx was, I think, writing most of the songs for Motley Crue. But
that's true. Yeah. And I was going for bass. Then I bought a guitar and I learned power chords. And for some reason, I ended up playing guitar, but then tried to start a band, ended up going to a friend's house where he had a kit, and I just sat down just to fuck around and play it. And then it kind of oddly just came to me. Like I remember the kid looked at me and was like, whoa, how I just played like a AC/DC beat or something. It's like, oh, have you ever done that before? And I hadn't. Yeah. And it was just from watching. So this is when I was probably, I'm going to think probably 11. Yeah. 11 years old. And so when I recognized that made more sense playing drums and it came natural, I just kind of put the guitar off to the side and just bought a drum set and kept going there.
Nice.
Yeah. And literally watching MTV. That's how awesome. I learned. Just would watch Tommy Lee or something, and it made sense what he was doing visually. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see what he's doing.
Yeah. Did what were some of the shows that you were there any local bands in particular, or a local scene that you were checking out, or sort of immersing yourself in along the way that became influential? Or
yeah, big time. I'm sure probably the same for you. Also, it was the punk rock and hardcore scene in New York is huge.
Yeah.
And Long Island had a good one. And I was lucky because even before I got to discover that, my parents were always supportive and took me to the concerts I wanted to see.
Nice.
So they took me to Guns N' Roses.
That's awesome.
And Skid Row.
Nice.
In 89.
Really?
So I got to see it. That was the first time I saw a rock band.
Yeah.
But then my local scene was... a band called the first show I saw was Avail. Avail and Garden Variety. Those are probably the more notable bands that were on that first Long Island show I saw. Once I discovered that there was a community of independent bands and people sort of doing that, that's what opened up the floodgates.
Right.
Yeah. and then it was just all fucking hardcore and punk rock from there. You know,
that's awesome, man. It's certainly, I think, when you, as a youth, connecting to the energy of that is something for sure. You know, and to this day, I still fucking love it.
Absolutely. It's funny too, because I feel like as you get older, for some people, maybe you could relate, it's like you kind of go back to the original stuff that you were into. So like I definitely wasn't listening to metal or hardcore per se, and maybe like for a 5-year period, and I find myself now approaching 40 going back to that kind of music. Yeah. Which is weird, but it makes sense.
Sure.
You know, everything changes around you and you sort of go back to what you know best, I think.
Yeah, well, I one of the in college I took this like symphonic music class, the history of symphonic music or something, and the teacher, he said, as you get older, your energy lowers, and you find that you want to listen to slower and more peaceful music.
Fuck that.
And I remember him saying that, and I was like, well, at the time I think it was in my 20s, and I was like, well, it hadn't happened yet, and here now 20 years later, it still hasn't happened. So I'm assuming I'm going to be listening to the same obnoxious shit and when I'm fucking in diapers again.
I mean, hey man, if you're in your 40s and you're a family man and you're still listening to metal, I don't think it's going to change. No. You're not going to be like 50 and be like, oh, well,
fuck
you know,
this.
Yeah. We're old enough to know that this is our life.
Yeah.
and happily.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, that was a game changer, because, you know, once I discovered the local scene in Long Island, then I discovered the New York City scene, and at that point, CB's was still a thing. So I did actually get to go see the Ramones.
That's awesome.
And I didn't see the Ramones at CB's, but you know what I mean. Like, I went to the city and I saw like a lot of real punk and hardcore bands that were still playing. Ramones were one of them, but I saw Jesus Lizard.
That's awesome.
It was just very eclectic at the time in New York, which I don't know if it was like that in a lot of other places. Like you could see Jesus Lizard or Unsane or the Ramones and all these bands, Sick of It All, a really wide variety. In the 90s was fucking awesome.
It was incredible. All the way down in New Orleans, there were some smaller venues that had just incredible bands come through, man. I saw Rollins' band with Corrosion of Conformity touring on the Blind record, opening for Rollins' band. So I saw that one, and that was a fucking incredible show. To this day, I'm just like, what was that? It was absolutely incredible.
I would have killed to be at that show.
It was unreal, man. And I was a huge fan of Rollins' band at the time, because that was Into Silence. So it was like 91, I think, or something like that. And it was weird because Corrosion of Conformity had put out the Blind record, and I was a huge fan of that record too.
They're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah. And Reed Mullins drumming on that record in particular is like fucking crazy,
it's so good,
badass.
It's they're so underrated, but it's just, they were actually, C.O.C. was one of the first cassette tapes.
Yeah, I had that Blind cassette tape. That's
well,
funny.
there was that, but when they were a hardcore band,
right, yeah.
Because, I don't know if you would buy records sometimes before you even heard the band because of what it looked like.
That's the way you did it.
Yes, so Technocracy, I bought that, and it was like thrash, but then when Blind and all that stuff came out, I actually didn't understand at the time the switch of they went more sludge,
right?
But now I'd say more like the past 10 years, I went back and all those fucking songs on oh my god, Albatross is unbelievable. The drum intro to that is so good.
It's badass.
You can't fuck with that.
Fuck yeah,
that's amazing.
You know what's funny about it as well, and I've thought about it. I feel like that Blind record, and I mean, I guess this is kind of comes down to Pepper Keenan joining the band, but because I mean, it's such a major shift,
Yeah.
But that I think might have been where Southern metal kind of started.
I think
that record right there.
I would agree with you, because
I don't know what would have preceded it.
Yeah, I mean, I it's funny. I know we're going off tangent, but this is interesting. But because I love this shit, and this is great. I think that I never thought about it that way, but I think you're right, because you had Sure, you had I Hate God, but that was a little, at the time, really underground and really sort of like not something that you would put on the radio.
Yeah.
And then Down was later. Crowbar was a little abrasive. And so like Pepper Keenan as a frontman was a lot more, you could put that on the radio, it could come on after Enter Sandman, which it did.
Right.
And they toured with them. And, but yeah. What a great fucking band, and they're back, so it's awesome.
It's badass.
Hell yeah.
And then Reed's back and doing it, but I think at one point he had like some horrific back injury.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. I just saw a video the other day of a different guy. It might have been Jimmy Bauer.
Yeah.
Who just plays in all of those.
Right. Jimmy's in all of the bands. It's insanity.
Yeah, but so good. Yeah. I've referenced an Albatross in many recordings, which I've never been able to copy, but been like, oh, like when the engineer's like, what do you want your drums to sound like? And
nice.
And I'm just like, oh yeah, listen to the drum intro of this Corrosion to Conformity song.
Right.
Make it sound like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You have a good, I've always enjoyed your drumming, and I think you have a pretty good sort of big kind of bombastic style,
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Where did that come back from Dale? Did that kind of stem from that?
Kind of, if you want to, because like I would be lying if I didn't say it came from Dave Grohl.
Right.
And I get teased about that a lot because I'm just such a, still, I'm not a hater. Like a lot of people I think are haters now, but, and that's what happens. But I was just fucking like, I loved all the 80s glam metal stuff, and this is really cliche, but then when Nirvana came out, it just flipped my worlds upside down.
Oh, it did it to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it did for you too, right?
It was crazy.
That drumming, it wasn't like technical, but the power of it and the way that he executed it was what really kind of like turned... It changed my mind of how to treat drums. Like he was very simple, but he really hit hard.
Right.
So it just played for the song, served the song first, but like every hit counts. So that's where it came from.
And he got a lot of that. He was a huge Dale fan as well.
Exactly.
And Bonham. So somewhere in between those two, I think, is kind of what you have with Dave Grohl.
Absolutely. I mean, and that sort of brings you to the other, like, sort of like, then you start appreciating Dale Crover, and then you start listening to guys like, what's that guy's name, Mac from Jesus Lizard, and stuff like that. And they all come from Bonham. So so at the end of the day, that's sort of where, and I think you have that too.
Absolutely.
Where the inspiration comes from. Yeah.
It's funny, man. I actually played in a Led Zeppelin like tribute band, and we played I don't know, I think like 20 Zeppelin songs. I've also been in another band where we did like a Hendrix tribute, and
nice.
Jimi Hendrix's songs are so much, from a form standpoint, so much more straightforward. You don't really realize it with Zeppelin until you start analyzing the songs and the forms of the songs. That there are really strange turnarounds, and at times they'll flip things. The transitions are bizarre. They alter things. It's it was amazing. And as we were learning these songs, we would have these discussions, and we all kind of had different perceptions of what was happening with the song. And then we'd have to go back to it and listen to it. And half the time, all of us were wrong. We were like, fuck, they did that there. Like Led Zeppelin shit is actually incredibly, it's deceptively sort of strange at times. And you wouldn't quite realize it until you actually had to sit there and figure out the form of their song.
Yeah,
it's
funny. It is, because they're not verse, chorus, verse songs at all.
No.
But like, did you play Fool in the Rain?
We didn't.
That was my first thought.
Yeah, we did not. But it's interesting that you would say that, man. I don't know if you know, there's this video out there with Jeff Porcaro, who played in Toto, and he did on the song Rosanna, he has a killer shuffle that he kind of got somewhere from Bernie Purdie and John Bonham.
Yes.
And so he plays the Fool in the Rain one, and then he does the Bernie Purdie shuffle, and then he's like, and this is, I kind of split the difference between the two, and this is the groove that I play on Rosanna, and he plays his shuffle. And it's the holy trinity of fucking shuffles. Of those it's like the halftime shuffle, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna hip you to that video. It's
please
badass.
Do. I mean, obviously, those are Bernard Purdie's video was gold when it comes.
Oh, it's amazing.
There's one where he's eating fried chicken at the same time.
Well, he sounds like he's eating the entire time he's talking about drums. It's like sexual food to him.
It's great. It makes you want to play.
Yeah,
because you're just like, this guy's feeling it right
now. Yeah, he's feeling it.
Yeah, but those the Fool in the Rain, man. It's the salsa part that gets me.
Dang, 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 dang.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's great shit.
It's good shit.
Next time you ever do a Led Zeppelin tribute, you got to let me know, and I'll be there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, man, we talked a good bit about playing shows. What are some of the more memorably bizarre shows, or any? I ask this all the time. I'm sure you have no shortage of equipment meltdowns.
Yes.
Is there anyone in particular that was fucked?
Do we want to go with equipment meltdowns or just like...
We'll start with equipment meltdowns.
Okay. Well, I've had some crazy meltdowns I was telling you before we started recording. Okay, one classic one that I have to mention is like it's everyone's worst nightmare. Like maybe like 15 years ago, I was in a band called On the Might of Princes. It was kind of like we were kind of part of that wave of emo bands with like Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, all that. So we're doing pretty well and playing pretty good shows, and did our first European tour, played a festival where there was easily at least 2,000 people. We're coming from playing basements and small shows, and we've made it at this point. We're like our crowning achievement. And I want to say second song, definitely like second song. We didn't even get past it. The pedal, my singer's guitar pedals and cables, all of them just stopped working. And it was just one of those things where, without him playing guitar, he couldn't just sing. It was like, we had another guitar player, but we actually like stood on stage in front of 2,000 people trying to figure it out for like, as like kids in our early 20s who have worked very hard at this point, like feeling like we've made it. And I think we were in like Germany or something. It was Großrock Festival. It's still a thing. I don't know where it is, but so we were in a panic running around on stage. I'm not even at my drum set at this point. We're like all roadies on stage, and the guitar thing never worked out. So we played 2 songs in front of 2,000 people and then walked off stage.
Oh no, that's fucking terrible, dude.
Yeah. And we broke up at the end of that tour.
Oh no. Oh shit.
Yeah, so
my god.
Did some reunions later on that were sold out at Vitus and shit. So like there was a later time, but like it was pretty bad.
Oh, dude, that's terrible. Do you want to tell the story of the show you saw last night?
Yes, thank you for reminding me that.
That's a good one.
And
it's not your story.
It's not my story.
But you witnessed it.
I'm just going to be very specific about this. I don't piss anybody off or get my ass beat. But like, I was just at a nuclear assault show last night.
Yeah.
And I love nuclear assault. So this is just funny. This is what I think happened. It seems pretty obvious, but all I know is I was telling you earlier. The drummer stopped playing in the middle of the second song towards the end during like a solo. Yeah. Just stopped playing.
Yeah.
And I thought the snare drum busted.
Right.
Like, that just seemed to be the obvious thing. But he got off stage and went to the bathroom. For those of you that don't know, St. Vitus doesn't have like dressing rooms or like a backstage. The backstage is the basement,
right?
As you know,
yeah.
And you have to, whether you're in Megadeth or Anthrax or whatever, but you have to walk through the audience
to get to the stage
with flashlights to get there. So he walked. This is a very large guy too. Like he walked through the audience, went to the bathroom, had to cut a really long line. And then, and the bass player of the band started playing a Cliff Burton bass solo to like kill time from like kill him anesthesia.
Wow!
They were just like and they acted like it was normal, which we thought was amazing. Like, I feel like if that happened in one of our bands, it wouldn't fly.
No.
And then he just went back on stage like it was like normal in the middle of the second song.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but he didn't finish the song.
Right.
He stopped playing. I don't know if he had to take a shit or a piss, but he bounced. Then he came back.
Adios.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then he just fucking started shredding. He just went back up and then he just killed it.
Wow.
Yeah, he had to go.
That's a first.
Amazing.
Yeah. That is definitely a new one. Wow.
If I may, I'm just going to indulge you with one quick one though, because it's just too funny, and I'm never going to get the chance to tell this. All right, Mike. But Spotlights played a show opening up for the Melvins where some guy was making goat noises for the entire set.
Oh, really?
At us. I think he was mocking us, but like, he wouldn't stop.
Really?
So in between every song, there was a guy making goat noises,
like
the entire time during the songs, during the quiet parts, and like. I think we had like an unspoken thing where it was really distracting me, so that's kind of a meltdown. But
I bet
there was a point when I almost put my sticks down and I was just going to go up to him and say something, and I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, that's just something.
Whoa, that's super random and weird.
But yeah, like I told you before the podcast started, like I have so many weird stories of things that have happened. Like, Like what is that?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, man, speaking of St. Vitus, some of the players in one of your other bands, Primitive Weapons, how did that band come about?
So Primitive Weapons, going back to one of the earlier questions, we're all from Long Island.
Okay.
And we moved to Brooklyn probably for similar reasons, which was that like the music scene where we came from, much like most places, starts to get stale after a while.
Right.
So like it was like a lot of hardcore in Long Island that was starting to get very samey. So I think there was an excitement for all of us individually and for a lot of people to go to Brooklyn where there was a more diverse art scene. Mm-hmm. And so when we all moved here, I think we all started playing different types of music. Like Artie, who is also one of the owners of St. Vitus, was playing in a band called Error Type 11, more like post-hardcore, quicksandy stuff.
Yeah.
And I was playing in indie bands. Dave Castillo, who's the booker at St. Vitus, was actually playing like electronic stuff. Like we were just all over the place. Yeah. And at some point in like 2009, I want to say, there was something going on where we were all at the same time just like rediscovering our roots and getting more into like metal and hardcore and the things that we all loved in the first place, which is weird.
Right.
It's like life coming full circle. When that sort of started happening, Dave Castillo, he thought it'd be a great idea if the three of us started a heavy band with only people from Long Island.
Right.
Like that was a rule.
Yeah.
So that we could sort of like almost claim it like, even though we live here, like, hey, we're Primitive Weapons from Long Island, like kind of like not forgetting where we came from. And that was basically the idea was like, we know how to do this. Why are we trying to pretend that we don't love heavy music? It was cool for a few years to try other things, but let's get back to what we know and love. So that was how it came about. And it's kind of weird. Like we just realized that the band's been around for 7 years the other day and doesn't feel like it because we don't do that much. We just and that's sort of interesting. I feel like a lot of bands break up if there's not a lot of activity. We just play whenever we can, but if we don't play for like 6 or 7 or 8 months with no practice and no shows, it's not a big deal. It's just like a great project to be a part of.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's never going to be a full-time band, I don't think. I mean, but we try when we can.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's killer. I really like that last record y'all put out.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
And then, I know you were playing with Han for a good while as well, right? How long did you play with that band?
Man, I don't remember how long it was, but it was a band. It's a funny story because we started off as a karaoke band.
Come on. Are you serious?
Yeah. I feel like you had to have been at one of those parties.
That's fucking weird.
We were like a punk rock metal karaoke.
Really?
It started out, that's how the band came formed, but we used to play at Matchless here in Brooklyn and Vitus, and people would come up and sing Motorhead and Fugazi.
I think I knew of it. I didn't think I'd realize that was y'all doing it.
Yeah, it was called Infinity Spaceship.
Wow, that's hilarious.
So it was interesting because we used to open with like Iggy and the Stooges, and every time we did it, and we eventually just got really tight, and we're like, we should just start a punk band. And when Hans started, we were called No Way,
right?
And it was more of kind of like a Black Flag kind of thing. Then we kind of morphed, got a different singer, but it was rooted in the karaoke band.
It all goes back to the karaoke.
That was how we discussed being in a band. It came from that, and now it's more of sort of there's an identity. It's kind of sludgy and kind of but Han is a project that I played with for a while, and then recently parted ways amicably and played on their new record, which is coming out on Aqualam.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, shameless plug.
There you go.
Yeah, but they're great.
Fucking A.
Yeah, it's a good local sort of project. I think they're trying to do as much as they can.
Cool.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. I think they have a drummer, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man, what's going on with 2018? It's a new year.
There's
it's
a
a
lot.
New you. You've been sober for a while, man. You got a new year ahead of you. Fuck, dude. What's going on here?
I know. I wish I was having cocktails with you right now. We'll see what happens. Sobriety, just, get that out of the way. I mean, I don't know if it's I need breaks sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you brought up 2018 and sobriety, and there's a twist here because Spotlights is doing a European tour. And when I got sober, one of the things I said was, if I play in Europe and I end up in Italy or France, I might have to have some wine.
Oh, fuck.
So
I hear you.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. But yeah, 2018 sick. So like, Spotlight's record Seismic is still fresh.
Yep.
Out of the oven. And the tour we're going on in about 2 weeks is with the band called Igor.
Yeah.
On Metal Blade, which
Yep.
is a really interesting band. They're kind of like weird electronic, trippy music mixed with death metal and other shit. So we're doing that. It's U.S., Canada. We're doing dates with Hum, which is amazing.
Cool.
Paul Bearer, all on the same tour. Like kind of when we're not with Igor, we're doing some shit with Hum, and then we're doing some shit with Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
And then we go to Europe and we play Roadburn, which is fucking great.
That's awesome.
And so yeah, we're just we're gonna keep the grind. It's and hopefully just more shit. But that's gonna take us into May.
Nice.
Yeah.
Whole lot of shows.
Yes. Yeah.
Fucking A.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, shit, Chris, it's been good talking to you, man. Thanks for swinging by.
Thanks for having me. I love it.
Many thanks to Chris for being an awesome dude and hanging and rapping with me. Be on the lookout for Spotlight's touring and or any music put out from any of his bands. It's got some great stuff with Primitive Weapons and, of course, Spotlights and Han as well. So check all of his projects out. Dude's a ripper. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for listening. Go on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe if you hadn't already, and or on the iTunes podcast page. So until next time, adios. Crash, bang, boom.